In the 1930s, Munich occupied a unique position within Nazi Germany. It was not merely a major German city, but the ideological birthplace of the National Socialist movement. Adolf Hitler had lived there, organized there, failed there, and ultimately transformed the city into what the regime called the capital of the movement. This symbolic status shaped daily life in ways that went far beyond politics. At the beginning of the decade, Munich, like much of Germany, was still suffering the aftershocks of economic collapse. The Great Depression had hit hard. Factories had closed, businesses failed, and unemployment had reached levels that threatened social stability. For many families, the early 1930s were marked by insecurity, debt, and declining living standards. When the Nazis came to power in 1933, they moved quickly to assert control. One of their first priorities was restoring a sense of order and normalcy. Public works projects, rearmament, and state-directed employment programs dramatically reduced visible unemployment. For many citizens, this created the impression that the new government had rescued Germany from chaos. Yet, this economic recovery came at a cost. Independent labor unions were abolished, strikes were outlawed, and workers were absorbed into state-controlled organizations. Employment was no longer just a means of survival. It became a political instrument. Loyalty to the regime increasingly affected job security, promotion, and access to opportunity. Housing conditions in Munich reflected broader national pressures. Population growth, rearmament, and internal migration strained urban infrastructure. While new housing projects were constructed, shortages remained common. Families often lived in cramped conditions, particularly working-class households. The regime promoted idealized images of domestic life, but reality frequently fell short. Food supply was another central concern. While shortages were not yet as severe as they would become during the war, prices and availability fluctuated. The state encouraged self-sufficiency, frugality, and discipline. These themes were reinforced through propaganda that framed personal sacrifice as a patriotic duty. Education was rapidly transformed. Schools became key instruments of ideological indoctrination. Curricula emphasized racial theory, physical fitness, obedience, and nationalism. Teachers were required to align with Nazi ideology, and those who did not were dismissed. Academic achievement became secondary to political reliability. Children and adolescents were drawn into the regime's worldview through compulsory youth organizations. Participation was framed as a privilege, but refusal increasingly carried consequences. These organizations structured leisure time, instilled discipline, and normalized militarism. Childhood itself became politicized. For women, the 1930s brought both restriction and expectation. The regime promoted a narrow vision of womanhood centered on motherhood, domesticity, and racial purity. Women were encouraged to leave professional careers and focus on family life. Financial incentives rewarded large families, while social pressure reinforced traditional roles. Despite these expectations, economic realities often forced women to continue working, especially in urban areas like Munich. This contradiction between ideology and necessity created tension, particularly among middle-class families accustomed to dual incomes. Religion remained a complex presence in daily life. While the Nazi regime tolerated churches initially, it sought to limit their influence. Religious institutions were monitored, and clergy who criticized the state faced harassment or arrest. Faith persisted, but it existed under increasing pressure. Public space in Munich was carefully managed. Political rallies, parades, and commemorative events were frequent and highly choreographed. Participation was not always voluntary. These displays reinforced unity while discouraging dissent, creating an atmosphere where silence could be interpreted as opposition. Surveillance became a constant undercurrent. The presence of the Gestapo and informants fostered an environment of caution. Conversations were measured. Trust narrowed. Even private life was not entirely private, as neighbors, co-workers, and even family members could become sources of denunciation. For Jewish residents, life in Munich deteriorated steadily throughout the decade. Discriminatory laws excluded them from professions, education, and public life. Businesses were boycotted, assets seized, and social isolation intensified. What began as legal discrimination evolved into systematic persecution. Other groups, political dissidents, disabled individuals, Roma, and others deemed undesirable, also faced increasing repression. Arrests, institutionalization, and forced removal from society became normalized. These measures were often hidden behind bureaucratic language and legal formalities. Cultural life narrowed under strict censorship. Art, literature, and music were evaluated for ideological purity. Experimental or critical expression disappeared from public spaces. The city's cultural heritage was selectively rewritten to align with Nazi values. Despite the growing control, many residents focused on daily survival rather than ideology. People adapted. Some supported the regime, others tolerated it, and some quietly resisted. The gradual nature of the changes allowed authoritarianism to embed itself without immediate mass confrontation. By the late 1930s, Munich had become fully integrated into the Nazi state in a way that left little room for independence or deviation. Political authority no longer existed as a separate force from daily life. It permeated workplaces, schools, neighborhoods, and social organizations. Party membership, loyalty, and visible conformity increasingly determined access to employment, education, and social standing. The boundaries between the state and the individual had largely disappeared. Social life was reorganized to reflect the regime's priorities. Clubs, associations, and community groups were either absorbed into Nazi-controlled organizations or dissolved entirely. Public gatherings were structured around state-approved events, while informal networks became cautious and inward-looking. The appearance of unity and order was carefully maintained, but it relied on constant oversight and the quiet suppression of dissent. Education had been fully reshaped to serve political ends. From early childhood through university, learning was no longer neutral. History, biology, physical education, and even mathematics were infused with ideological meaning. Students were trained not only to think in prescribed ways, but to accept hierarchy, obedience, and militarization as normal aspects of life. Independent thought became a liability rather than a strength. Labor was similarly controlled. Employment was framed as service to the nation, and work itself became a measure of political reliability. Trade unions no longer existed as advocates for workers, replaced by state-run labor organizations that emphasized discipline and productivity over rights. Economic stability was visible, but came at the cost of autonomy and protection. Cultural expression narrowed further as the decade progressed. Art, music, literature, and theater were filtered through ideological standards that eliminated experimentation and criticism. Munich's cultural identity was reshaped to reflect an idealized past and a mythologized national destiny. What survived did so because it served propaganda or reinforced conformity. Outwardly, the city appeared orderly and functional. Streets were active, industries productive, and public life carefully staged. Yet beneath this surface lay a society constrained by fear, surveillance, and enforced silence. Many residents adapted, some believed, others complied, and a smaller number resisted quietly. If you appreciate restored historical footage and stories like this, make sure to subscribe to History Safe. Your support helps keep these rare moments from the past alive and accessible. Don't forget to like the video, leave a comment, and share it with others who love history. Every interaction helps History Safe uncover, restore, and bring more forgotten footage back to life. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more incredible history.